Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. I know this is a little bit of a trying time as we all try to figure out exactly what this means and what online supplemental instruction means for us and for our students. I know this is not exactly what you had signed up for when you decided to become a teacher, or even what you knew that this would look like a few weeks ago when we left our classrooms. But I want to let you know that I'm here to support you in this work, and that there's a lot of other people that are going through similar work, both around our district and across the state. And you're not the only one going through this. That said, I do want to share with you a few supports that the CNI office is creating for you. So for one thing, we are creating a Canvas course called CCS Remote Learning Support that will be shared with you today. And within that, we've got this presentation that we're going to go through as it pertains to math instruction specifically. I've got some sample lessons that you could look at, and then we've got some professional learning options, and then I'm going to give you guys access to some resources that I have begun, but that I'd like for you guys to be able to share with each other so that you just have access to as much options as possible for your students. So that said, I'm going to work my way through this PowerPoint just to give you some ideas to consider as we move towards remote online instruction. There's a bit.ly at the bottom that will get you directly to this PowerPoint. All right, so we're going to begin by talking about just the objectives. So as you move towards supplemental instruction, consider that at this point, supplemental instruction just means no new content. So the main objectives for supplemental instruction are going to be to give yourselves time to reconnect with your students, to get everyone comfortable with 100% online instruction and whatever learning management system you choose, and then provide that supplemental instruction. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more detail about what each of those three things means. The rationale for supplemental instruction is that right now, legally, if we were to begin teaching new content, there are certain accommodations that are federally mandated for our students. And we have not quite worked through the kinks of what each of those accommodations entail and how to best achieve those. So for right now, we're working in the lens of supplemental instruction. So let's talk about each of these things. So first off, as far as reconnecting with your students, keep in mind that some of your students haven't seen or heard your face in a couple of weeks. They may not have been able to connect with some of their classmates. So we're going to recommend that you let your kids see you. That might be a video, or that might be a live video stream or something recorded. So it could be either asynchronous or synchronous. Give them a chance perhaps to connect with their classmates. So Padlet and Linoit are both response options where students can post ideas or respond to each other and kind of see what each other's reading or thinking about. If you're going to give them that chance, it could be something that's math related, or it could be completely unrelated to math content. So I've given two examples. It could be something like Which One Doesn't Belong or Would You Rather Math, that are both easy ways to get kids talking about something that's specific to math, but then they could also respond to each other or share their thoughts. Or it could be something unrelated to math content, but just give students a chance to connect with each other. Next big objective is to get everyone comfortable with whatever learning management system you've chosen, and then whatever tools you're going to use within that learning management system. So ideally, you're just providing some easy tasks that are logistical in nature. Some of you may have been using Canvas or Google Classroom or some other feature, and students may be more familiar with that than in other classrooms where that hasn't been the case. So spend as much or as little time on this component as you need, just to make sure that you know and understand the capabilities of that learning management system, but then also your students feel comfortable as well. Think about the different collaborative tools that students might be using, how to post, how to respond, how to submit work, and then for you, how to give feedback to students in an ideal time frame. And then finally, we're going to provide some supplemental instruction or practice based on the standards or clusters of standards or the units that you see that your students need. So here are some things to consider that might guide that information in that planning. So which standards are we going to focus on? It could be things that your students struggled with. It could be things that they did fine with, but maybe they weren't explored deeply enough. So if you focused on DOK 1 level practice and just the procedure, but you didn't actually explore more about how to create your own problem or how to explore that in a more meaningful way, DOK 2 or 3. It could be that you're choosing topics based on something that's foundational for your course. So if it's the major work of your grade, or if it's something that you know they will absolutely need to be successful in a future course. But choose some standards or some topics that make the most sense for you to review. The next recommendation is to minimize the number of new tools for your students. So for instance, the platform called Desmos, teacher.desmos.com, could be used for practice. It could also be used for feedback. It could also be used for assessment. But by using that one tool, you could actually knock out a lot of birds with one stone, as opposed to having different tools that you've got to get familiar with and your students have to get familiar with. By no means am I mandating it's got to be Desmos, but just be considerate about which tools you're using. And then also think about how you are designing your lessons. So this may be something that's completely consistent with your lesson planning structure that you've already been using. If you would like some type of structure, I'm a big proponent of Launch, Explore, Discuss. And so I've given a couple of examples of what Launch, Explore, Discuss could look like. But essentially, you're going to launch some task, either provide a mini lesson or provide some interesting problem, but give some kind of hook to get kids interested or engaged. Then let students explore that task. That could be some asynchronous work, or that could actually be during a live session, but they either work on the activity or they work on the task for that problem. And then they come back together and either discuss in a live format with you, or it could be that they just discuss by posting and commenting on each other's thoughts. But Launch, Explore, Discuss is an easy format for online instruction, and there would be some consistency day to day with that format. All right. I did also provide some other options for synchronous work and for asynchronous work. You can see examples of what these activities are and then how to learn more about them. One thing to consider for asynchronous work is to please emphasize quality of task over quantity of tasks. Our students we're recommending that your students not spend a full 8 hours of each day doing schoolwork the way that they would at school. You know, a lot of tasks will take students significantly longer at home with less supports than they would have taken at school. So think about what quality of assignments you could give. So how many times could you offer DOK 3 level tasks to students? Could they be doing conceptual type lessons as opposed to just procedural lessons? And then I've given you some examples and places to look for that. All right, so what's next? So as a PLC, start to think about your course. You know, what learning management system, here I refer to it as an LMS, are they going to be using, or are you going to be using? Do they know how to access this? What logistics need to be managed? How are you going to be in touch with your students? So have a conversation with your PLC. I did also create 2 links where you can click and share resources. So I've begun 2 documents. This one's middle school and the other one's high school, where I've created some big bucket ideas. So I've got lesson ideas, instructional ideas, math practice, math tasks, resources. If you click on that, it should jump straight down to that bookmark. And then again, this is where I couldn't decide, do I provide all these resources or do I not overwhelm you? So I've started off with 2 or 3 ideas for each of these categories. If you've got a really good idea for a category, this is an editable document, so feel free to add to it. And then maybe I'll put another column where you can add your name so that people know who to contact about that. But I didn't want to overwhelm teachers with too much information, but at the same time, we're kind of moving into what for some teachers is uncharted territory, and I want to make sure that everybody has access to some really quality stuff. So use these documents to learn more about ideas, but then also to share some ideas with each other. All right. I will be holding some office hours. So about an hour each day, I'll be available to chat if you have questions or if you need something. And by no means do I have all the answers for online instruction and what this means, but if nothing else, I can, share something that I've heard another teacher talking about or point you in the right direction. So if you use those links, you can see my office hours. And then finally, I wanted to point you to a few more resources. So here are the best 4 platforms that I have found in the last week as far as information. So there's an online course that NC State created about teaching math with technology. It maintains the rigor of a true math classroom in a balanced classroom. The next one is a webinar that is actually going to take place tomorrow on Tuesday, March the 24th. This is about making the shift to online math instruction. That's from NCTM. Underneath that is an FAQ webinar from North Carolina Virtual Public Schools. So this includes a great deal of tips and tricks for teachers of all content areas, so it's not specific to math. And then underneath that is a repository that NCDPI has created with all kinds of information and webinars. So there's some helpful links. There will be a website, like I mentioned, that you should have access to on Tuesday, the 24th, called the Remote Learning Support page. When you click on math, you'll have this presentation. You'll also have access to some sample lessons that I've created. So if you click on week 1 or on week 2, week 1 again primarily focuses on the social emotional support and learning how to use learning management systems, how to submit a task or how to submit an answer, how to navigate through Canvas. And then the second week of activity shows a sample lesson plan for where I'm actually teaching some mini lessons and having students work on more rich math activities. All right. And then the final tabs give you access to some of those middle school resources and high school resources. All right. I do want to thank you again. I know this is going to be a significant amount of work in transitioning to an online platform for some of you. There are many teachers in our district that you can reach out to for support. If you have specific questions about something in specific, reach out to me and I may be able to point you to somebody that has already addressed that problem or that already has some ideas on that subject. I do want to thank you for all your work and let me know how I can help. Take care.